Right, hello and welcome to another Womanizers Bible podcast. This being 2015, the first year that I've tried it, I thought I'll try and get 20 of them done this year. The original plan was 10 and to then give up and do something else, but I quite enjoy recording these, so here we go. I'll see if I can get to 20 by the end of the year. We shall see. So, today's podcast, I'm going to throw out a hat tip to Tom Torero. I was having a chat with him today about his recent podcast on scam marketing in the PUA world, and our chat started to meander a little bit into territory about game theory and prisoner's dilemma and so on, and that kind of inspired me to do this podcast. It's very deep on the mental masturbation, obviously. That's what this podcast is all about. And I just want to draw some links between game theory, the universal hustle, and how it influences daygame. And hopefully you can take a few bits of advice from this. So, first of all, let's talk about game theory. What is it? Right then. Now, game theory is, I think, originally developed in political philosophy, although it's also used a lot in politics. And what it comes down to is it's a kind of mathematical analysis, kind of very simple mathematical models of conflict and cooperation between intelligent, rational decision makers. So what this is saying is in any situation, whether it's at a poker table, whether it's at a diplomatic meeting, or if it's just a social group, there's going to be individual actors, the people involved or representing organisations. They're going to come in with a certain set of interests, what you might call a kind of preference matrix. So they're going to try and achieve things from this conflict or cooperation venue. And they're each going to have different goals, right? They're looking out for themselves. And there's going to be, because of the situation, some kind of payoff matrix where achieving, by following certain strategies, crucially depending on what the other people do, will have different payoffs. Now, I'll make this a bit more specific in a minute. So the theory of people underlying this is that people are mostly intelligent, rational decision makers, right? They're looking out for their interests. They have a pretty good grasp of what those interests are. They've got pretty good information about what's going on, and then they'll apply their strategies to that to try and maximize their payoff by either cooperating or getting into conflict. Right, so that view of the world, that's a little bit like out of the economics theory of the rational man, right? So it's assuming people are not clouded by emotion or by religion or ideology, or just by having it in for someone and willing to cut off the nose to spite the face type thing. I think it is actually quite accurate when shit gets real with people. They do tend to be quite intelligent, rational decision makers most of the time. I think it's hardwired into us. So, game theory is based on that view of the world, and these are the types of general situations it tries to address. Now, game theory is most famous for what's called the prisoner's dilemma. Now, the prisoner's dilemma is based on a story. So, imagine this is what's going on. Right. Two guys go out to rob a bank. And it's a heist. They're going to break into a safe at a jeweller's office, whatever you want it to be. So anyway, the problem is the police come, and as they're running away, they get caught. So both prisoners are taken to the police station and put in different prison cells where, crucially, they cannot communicate with each other. Now, this is just a thought experiment, right? So don't try and muddy the waters with, but like they could call a lawyer or, whatever, if this, then that, right? It's a philosophical experiment, thought experiment, so you just have to accept the premise is true because they're trying to bring out a central point. So these two prisoners are in separate rooms, and the police have to go interview them. And the problem for the police is that they don't have enough evidence to convict either of them on the most serious offence of bank robbery, But they do, because they caught them like carrying the bags full of money and stuff, they do have enough evidence to convict them on the lesser offence of carrying stolen goods. Now this is crucial, because what this means is the police require a confession from one of the robbers, one of the prisoners, in order to allow him to turn state's evidence to give the evidence necessary to get the conviction for a bank robbery and thus the harsher sentence. So this situation is commonly set up into a matrix. So if you think of a square divided into 4 equal squares, right? So what you've got is let's say you've got prisoner 1 at the top, like representing the vertical columns, then you have prisoner 2 on the left hand side representing the horizontal columns. If I remember, I'll put a grid up with this on the screen, but I'll probably forget. So each prisoner is faced with a choice. Does he either A, confess, turn state evidence, rat out his friend in order to plea bargain a lighter sentence for himself, and so stitches made up, or, and this strategy is called cooperate. No, sorry, it's called defect, as in he's betraying his fellow. Or does he cooperate with his fellow prisoner and keep quiet, in which case the police will never get that evidence, but they'll both get stung with the lesser charge. So to make game theory work mathematically, you have to put numbers onto this payoff matrix. So what's commonly done in the prisoner's dilemma is, if prisoner A and prisoner B betray each other, each of them serves, say, 2 years in prison, right? They both get done for the harsher crime, but the fact that they both pleaded guilty and were willing to turn evidence means they get a slightly reduced sentence. However, if prisoner A betrays prisoner B, grasses him up, confesses, but prisoner B keeps to the thieves' code and stays silent, then A will actually get set free, and B will serve 3 years in prison because he's banked the rights but didn't confess to mitigate the sentence, right? And this also goes vice versa if B betrays A. And then if A and B both remain silent, i.e. they cooperate with each other, the thieves' code, both of them will serve only 1 year in prison on the lesser charge. Right, that's the matrix. So, I mean, you can set up the matrix in different ways, but it all basically comes down to the same point, which is this. If the prisoners cooperate with each other and remain silent, they get the less overall time spent between them in prison, because the police can't make the stronger charge stick. What would be really dumb for them as a group is for them both to grass each other up, because then they both get stung with the higher charge, right? They basically double the total time spent in prison. But the reason this gets interesting is because from an individual selfish point of view, if they grass the other guy up and the other guy stays honourable, then they get off and the other guy takes the rap, right? So what they found in the predictions of this, and they did computer tournaments and stuff where they put artificial intelligence into these situations, what they find is actually both prisoners usually grass each other up, unless there's a good reason not to, right? Because no matter what the other guy does, you get a lower sentence if you grass him up. So you grass him up. The problem is the other guy's in exactly the same position, so he grasses you up. So what you get is basically a mutual downward spiral. As you both fuck each other up, but you call it lose-lose, right? Whereas both of them staying silent would be win-win. Perhaps a more visual metaphor of this applied to the real world is, imagine you're at a rock concert and you're trying to see the band, but like everyone's in the way and you can't really see. So what do? You might stand on your tiptoes. So that would be the defect strategy, right? You're breaking the rule of everyone should just stand comfortably. So you break that rule, you get on tiptoes, and suddenly you can see better. Now, if you're the only person who does that, you've kind of won, right? You get the improved view. The problem is everybody else is in this situation. So if everybody else gets on tiptoes, then you're back to the same position you all were before, except you're all on tiptoes, so your muscles hurt. So that would be a lose-lose. So if you think about normal social life, you see this principle applies everywhere. You see, like, for example, if everybody gets public transport to work, then it's much cheaper, it's much more efficient. But the problem is it's always faster if you take your car. Problem is everybody takes the car, the result is gridlock. So again, I'm talking like thought experiments. Obviously, other problems that you don't want to go on public transport because like poor people are on them and stuff. So and the other problem is you might get situations where everybody is cooperating. You know, everybody is working for the win-win, and then one person defects, and they try to, you know, scout that little bit of advantage for themselves by defecting. You know, they want to be that one person standing on tiptoes, and then what that does is everybody else gets disgusted, but it can often set a snowball in effect where other people start defecting, and before long everyone's defecting, and the whole thing is destroyed. That's why, for example, humans have evolved very, very harsh natural punishments for people who defect from agreements. So that's the prisoner's dilemma. Now, if you're just hearing that prisoner's dilemma there, your natural reaction might be, ooh, that sounds a bit nihilistic, a bit apocalyptic, right? Like when put in these situations, people are always going to fuck each other up. And yet cooperation exists. Why is that? Well, what was found in analysing this game theory, the prisoner's dilemma, is that it is very nihilistic if what happens is the experiment is run once. So, you know, like you're put in prison for one crime, you're getting interviewed, and it's a one-shot deal, and there's no comeback. But what happens when you run the game over and over again, you know, like many, many rounds of the same game, and then, crucially, you know what the other players did before, you know their history, then everything changes. So there was actually a computer experiment run around about 1980 by a guy called Anatol Rapoport. Sorry, it was a strategy by Anatol Rapoport. The actual computer tournament was run by Robert Axelrod. Anyway, both of them have written books about this. I think one's called The Possibility of Cooperation, and the other one has a very similar title, like There's Something Else of Cooperation. So anyway, what happened is a computer tournament was set up in which computers would run this tournament over and over again with like dozens and dozens of different players, and each player was a computer program with a different strategy, and there was a prize, right? Is you would get a payoff for each round. You'd play against everybody, you know, like a round robin. You'd play multiple times against everybody, and you would get scores depending on, you know, where your strategy with the other person's strategy led you to a payoff in the matrix, you know, like, so you get, if it was the prison one, you know, did you get 2 years this time, did you get a free, did you get 3 years, and the computer program would know the history of the other computer program before making its choice in that round. Now, what they found is that 2 tournaments in a row, on both occasions, it was actually the simplest strategy that was the most successful in these competitions, and that strategy was called tit for tat. Now, tit for tat is the strategy that you would expect from, you know, its name. So this strategy is it first cooperates. So in the prisoner's dilemma sense, it first cooperates by not grassing up its mate. In the rock concert analogy, it cooperates by not going onto its tiptoes, and it stays flat-footed. So what would happen is it would start off nice, the first round it would cooperate, and then every subsequent round it would simply copy what its opponent did in the previous round. Right? So if the opponent was nice, i.e. cooperated, it would keep cooperating, and if the opponent ever defected, like failed to cooperate, it would punish them by defecting on the next round, right? Tit for tat. So the reason this strategy was so incredibly successful, despite being really simple, you know, there was no sophisticated AI here, no attempt to like predict, no attempt to take long history patterns and try and scalp out opportunities. It was really, really simple. It's probably like 2 lines of code. Right? Why was that successful? Well, really simple. When it met other nice strategies who cooperated, it would cooperate and get into a mutually beneficial win-win scenario where they both take the maximum points that are available, shared maximum points. When it was against a nasty strategy, you know, one which always defected to try to, you know, like con them constantly, it would get conned the first time only, and after that it would be mutually assured self-destruction. So the tit-for-tat program wouldn't get any points from many points from these nasty strategies, but it would also deny the points to the other strategy, right? It was neither a cheater nor a sucker, because these nasty strategies required on sucker programs that were too nice in order to scalp the extra points. So what you'd end up with, oh yeah, and then the other thing is it's forgiving. Crucially, it was forgiving, which is if a nasty strategy started being nice again, it would be nice again, which would allow a win-win spiral to emerge. So what that meant is any strategy which was basically Machiavellian, which would try to trick the other programs into being nice while it scalped them, they'd learn immediately that they're not going to get away with that they're going to get mutually shared destruction, so they'd best sort themselves out, be nice, and then they can both do okay, right? Basically, he's not a sucker. So an incredibly simple strategy, tit for tat, would win everything, because when it would reward and cooperate with nice programs, and it would punish and fail to reward nasty programs. It would basically never get taken advantage of except on that very first time. So that was tit for tat. Now, if this prisoner's dilemma is new to you, what you're probably immediately thinking is something along the lines of, yeah, well, that's obvious, right? Or, yeah, well, that's what I would do, right? Because tit for tat is what gets called an evolutionary stable strategy. What that means is if you get any group of organisms, and this has actually been tested on like birds in the Galapagos Islands and stuff, and you see it in the animal kingdom all around, is tit for tat is evolutionary stable because the strategy allows the individual organism to do okay, to not get out-competed by nastier organisms in its own population, while it also, by setting up win-win cycles, it allows its own group, whether it's its kinship group or its local group or the species as a whole, to be win-win and perform well against rival species. So it's an extremely well-adapted evolutionary strategy despite being so simple, and that is why humans, we feel it in our core very, very reactive, that if somebody fucks with us, we immediately want to fuck back with them. We get that little like rise up of anger and indignation, and then the minute someone apologizes and starts being nice to us, it's actually quite hard to maintain the grudge because we want to be nice to them again. And this is because it's very deep in human nature to do tit for tat, because it is so extremely successful as an evolutionary strategy. Now, you might say that stuff's great when you're just talking about hypotheticals, but in the real world things are different. Well, there's actually a very good example of this used in one of those books. I can't remember if it was The Possibility of Cooperation or the other book, but I remember reading about it years ago at university, where they actually found this in World War One in the trenches. Right? Shit doesn't get any realer than trench warfare in World War One, right? It's pretty much the most dangerous place you can be, right? Where, sticking your head up at the wrong moment and gets shot off, right? It's an absolute meat grinder there. So what actually happened is they found that these soldiers who were dug into trenches just a couple of 100 yards away from each other were not actually shooting at each other in many cases. It actually really puzzled a lot of the generals. They're like, why is there so little action happening on this front when these soldiers are so close to each other on opposing armies with guns, right? Like, why is no one killing each other? But I'm talking about like normal day to day, not when there's like a major offensive, right? And they'll have to run over the top. And what they found is that there was an unspoken agreement between the British and German troops. Is basically, you don't kill me and I won't kill you. So what they found really strange, they found examples where there'd be the toilets like not that far behind the lines. There'd be these little like sort of open pits or these little wooden sheds, and soldiers would go to have a shit, have a piss in these toilets in plain sight of the enemy positions, and the snipers just would not take them out, right? But apparently the snipers would remind the other side that they could take them out and were choosing not to, so they'd like shoot against the wall, like above the people's heads, like significantly above the other guy's head, just to show how good they are at aiming. And they do it vice versa. And what they're basically saying is, look, like, we're not going to shoot you when you're trying to have a shit because we don't want you trying to shoot us when we're trying to have a shit, right? They're both instinctive, both sides instinctively know they don't want to get involved in one of those defect death spirals, right? I suppose this will be defecate death spiral. But anyway, they don't want to be involved in that, right? Why bother? So what they found is they just wouldn't snipe each other, and when people broke the rules, they'd often apologize to each other. So the generals actually had to try and destroy this cooperation by instituting like nighttime raiding parties to break down the social trust. So, right, 20 minutes in, how does this relate to game? Come back to game. Well, in Daygame Mastery, I talk about respect the hustle. It's in chapter 1, section 1, where I talk about mindsets you need for Daygame. So it's things like the need mindset for art selection, the mindset for respecting the pursuit of excellence, and I also talk about respect the hustle, about how everyone's got a hustle going on who's trying to get laid. Right? There's very, very few guys who just sit there and hot girls throw themselves at them. Everyone's working, whether they're going to the gym and don't use nutrition to get an elite physique to pull girls that way, whether they're building up interesting ecosystems like as DJs or VIP parties, or whether they're doing what I do, which is going out into Europe and hitting on girls on the street. Everyone's got a hustle. And I talk about a good mindset for doing game is you respect other people's hustles. You try and avoid the ego traps of thinking your hustle's the best, or that you're the only one who's working hard, other people are lucky or having it easy. Because these other people, it's a bit like watching a duck glide across the pond, right? It's above water, it looks very graceful and smooth and easy, but if you look under the water, their legs are batting around really fast to propel themselves, right? So you respect the hustle. So game is a hustle. Well, it's a collection of many hustles, and day game is a particular hustle. So for the terms of this podcast, what we're thinking of is the game you bring to the table is basically your strategy that you're bringing to the game theory, right? If you think of the sexual marketplace as the tournament, right, the computer tournament with the payoff matrices, then your strategy is your version of your tit for tat or whatever other strategy you bring to the table. So that's how the hustle ties into this. So the obvious question is going to be, what is the best hustle, right? What's the best strategy? How can I refine my existing hustle to take advantage of what we are learning about game theory? Well, the first thing, lesson for game here is tit for tat, right? Start nice, don't take any shit, and then you're going to get into win-win spirals with nice girls, and you're going to very quickly end up ditching the bad girls. And then the girls who are not really one nor the other have both potentialities. If they try it on with you by giving you shit, they get punished, so that encourages them to turn nice. In a sense, that's passing a shit test, right? So what will you have? Okay, I wouldn't take this too literally, but basically you start nice, they start nice. You're talking about a yes girl or a strong maybe girl, you know, a girl who is roughly in the game for the same reasons, to get the same things, is happy with what you're presenting. So these things go pretty easy, right? There'll be very little silly buggers going on. Right, the no girls, I wouldn't say no girls are bad girls, right? No girls might be absolutely lovely people who just don't like you, or they're just not available. But you know, you'll get girls who are just cunts, right? I mean, there's not many of them, but they do exist. So girls who just give you shit, right? They give you shit on the street, they give you shit on text messages, they give you shit on dates, right? Whether they're time wasters or princesses or whatever it is. Now, as we'll see a little bit later in the podcast, day game tends to filter those girls out much more than online or night game. But anyway, the point being is they give you that little bit of shit, right? They give you a tat, so you give them a tit, as it were. I don't mean grab their tits, but you know. So what happens is, girl gives you a bit of a shit test, throws up a bit of bullshit, bit of silly buggers. You don't encourage it, right? You react a bit cold, you punish her for it in some way, whether it's in a smooth kind of, I don't know, agree and amplify to the shit test, or whether it's, you know, she sends you a bit of a cunt message over WhatsApp, which breaks up the vibe of the conversation, so you just roll off, right? You just roll off, you're punishing her with the roll off, then she comes back with nice behaviour, you know, as in just flip back into the cooperational strategy, so you immediately reward that and you become cooperational again, right? You don't punish her again, calling her a cunt, right? So tit for tat. Very, very simple strategy in games. Start nice, punish bad behaviour, and be forgiving when the behaviour turns good. And of course what happens is the proper bad girls, the ones who are just, you know, manipulative cunts, BPD, princesses, whatever their problem is, they simply get eliminated, right? They tried on with you, they get nowhere, so they will pretty soon stop trying it on with you. So they're just filtered out. So this is going to take us into the concept of world creation and how adopting this strategy will change your vibe. Now I'm going to give a shout out to Ricky Raw of the blog therawness.com for where I first read this concept, of what's called world creation. Again, I'll try and remember to put a link in, but if not, literally just Google therawness.com world creation and you'll very quickly come upon his post. So he started off with a quote from Ken Keyes: "A loving person lives in a loving world. A hostile person lives in a hostile world. Everyone you meet is your mirror." And another quote, not on that blog post, is by George Bernard Shaw, and he says, "The liar's punishment is not in the least that he is not believed, but that he cannot believe anyone else." So what does this mean? Right, per Ricky Raw, world creation is a concept about the self-fulfilling prophecy and how we end up creating the very world we perceive, even if, ironically, that's the type of world we're striving to avoid. So he quotes a book by Harriet Breaker called Who's Pulling Your Strings? Now I'm going to quote this at length, and I'm reading this directly off Ricky's website. I very much recommend that you go check out the article. So this is from the book. "The manipulator uses the defense mechanism of projection in his dealings with the world of others. He believes that, given a choice, everyone else believes the same way he does. In other words, other people see the world in the same starting win-lose terms. He feels that others also believe that they can play or they will get played, right? That it's all a game, and that given a choice, others will always opt for being the controlling, manipulating party. He feels that others only feel their own needs, which the manipulator can barely imagine as being different fundamentally from his own. And finally, he feels that others share his self-centered sense of entitlement. Given this tendency towards projection, towards seeing the motives and beliefs of others the same, drives that propel him into personal dealings. The manipulator cannot act in a trusting manner. He instinctively will approach any situation that requires a choice between trusting the other person and behaving cooperatively by opting for the latter strategy. The manipulator will always put the distrusting foot forward because he expects others to act only out of competitive self-interest and will make the preemptive competitive strike first." Right, that was quite a mouthful, so let's try and parse that. Basically, what it's saying is this: if you start with the mindset that you are a cunt, right, that you're a cheater, that you're a liar, that you're a game player, then you're going to project naturally, because people psychologically project, you're going to project that other people have this same idea, right? That so basically, because you're an arsehole who's looking to scalp off other people and rob other people, you think they're all out to get you as well. Therefore, it's play or be played. Therefore, the rational strategy for you is to not trust anybody and to get your preemptive shot in first, right? Rip them off before they get a chance to rip you off. Now, given what I've said about the prisoner's dilemma, it's pretty obvious that this is a defect strategy, right? It's defective as well, but I mean it's defect in that it encourages you to cheat at the earliest opportunity that you think you can get away with it, and it also encourages you to never expose yourself by trusting somebody. So, under the Axelrod tournament, what would happen is you would very, very quickly get involved in lose-lose cycles, lose-lose spirals with the other strategies. You know, you'd meet other actual cheating strategies where you both try and fuck each other over, and what you'd also do is you'd alienate all the nice strategies and forgo the opportunity to get involved in win-win cycles with them, because deep down you simply cannot believe that they really would be nice. And these strategies don't even allow for enlightened self-interest. If you come in with this mindset, you can't even believe that someone would tactically, for Machiavellian reasons, be nice to you, right? Because you believe all they're doing is setting you up for a longer con, for a harder fall later on. So what happens is, if you have the mindset that you're a dickhead, that you're going to rob people, and basically value taking, then you're going to naturally project that onto everybody else, and you're going to create that world of value taking, right? You're going to actually influence the world around you, both by the people you seek out to interact with and also by drawing in the bad and repelling the good. So in the end, you're surrounded by people just like you. So what that means is your real world around you really is player be play, right? You're surrounded by dickheads. So that means what started off as a faulty mindset of projection, that, you know, everyone's a dickhead when it's not true, has actually become true as a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you've driven away everyone that's good and all that remains is the scum. So now when you go out and you see everyone play or get played, that is actually accurate. So that's the irony of it, is that if you start with a win-lose view of the world, you very quickly reinforce that through the world creation until win-lose really is your world. And this is how people can get stuck in traps of bad people. Now, fiction makes good use of this. So, for example, you read hard-boiled crime fiction, right? Everyone's a lowlife, everyone's a scumbag, right? You watch Quentin Tarantino movies, everyone's a lowlife, everyone's a scumbag, right? They're examples of the end state of this world creation, where you've attracted the scum to you and you've repelled the good. Now, world creation obviously goes the other way, which is if you start from a position of, you know, the world is good, people are nice, people are cooperative, that's how I am, you project that out, and at the extreme end that would be extreme naivety. And but anyway, you start out, and if you have a good childhood where, you know, everyone's nice to kids, usually your parents have been good, so if you've been lucky enough to have a very good childhood, your world will have been created for you by the adults around you to encourage the idea of honesty, trust, integrity, and so on, so that not only have you inculcated those values into yourself, but your experience of the world around you rationally, empirically, is that the world's a nice place where everything's win-win. So that's why stable upbringing can be so important to a good vibe, and why if you've had a difficult upbringing or you've encountered like tragedy or betrayal in a serious way, such as, for example, I don't know, like a really bad divorce raping or something, why you will naturally tend to fit towards the win-lose value-taking side of game, and, you know, you'll be attracted to its you know, the NLP, the speed seduction, the manipulation, the all that weird shit, you know, like the old school PUA stuff, like, you know, the dark triad shit. You'll be naturally drawn towards that because it'll reflect your own inner anger and trust issues. And that's why you'll often start on like shitty game, things will go bad, and then you're just basically reinforcing your view, your world creating the idea of game and dating is combative, untrustworthy, everyone's a cunt. And even worse, if you're doing this in particularly bad environments, you know, environments which are really anonymous, where both the men and the women are never playing the iterated prisoner's dilemma, right? Because remember, the big thing about the iterated prisoner's dilemma is you must play the game many times with the same actors, and you know what they did previously. So the most extreme version of this for game would be social circle, right? Everybody knows everybody, everyone gossips, and you all know what everybody does over a long period of time. That's one extreme. The other extreme would be really fast, cold approach in nightclubs or day game, right? Where it's the first time you've met each other, you know nothing about each other, nobody else knows anything, nobody else knows anybody's history except what you present. Right? That would be the opposite example. That would be like the one-time prisoner's dilemma. So this works on both the men and the women. If on the one-time prisoner's dilemma, what happens is the men know they can get away with pumping and dumping. You know, you can promise one thing and deliver another, you know, bait and switch, pump and dump. And the women also know that they can just be horrible cunts, right? They can give you bitch face, they can give you all kinds of shit because it's never going to get back to hurt them. So you can very easily get into oppositional dating frames. And then, of course, you start second guessing each other, right? So the women start thinking all the guys are pump and dump guys, so you don't owe them any respect. And the guys think, oh god, all the women are bitches, like why give them any, why treat them well, they're just fucking lizards, they're all sluts. So I think this is exemplified by East Coast American game, metropolitan game. I mean, not everything going on there, but a lot of the manosphere stuff, right? Every woman's a cunt, every woman's a slut, you know, they'll suck your dick within 10 minutes, so you can't take your eyes off them for 9 minutes. And, you know, the girls who do their own things on Jezebel or whatever the fuck girls, right? They're always talking about how guys are all cunts and stuff. So anyway, that would be a mass world creation project where everybody's got involved in a lose-lose spiral, and it's pretty tough. I think the opposite of that would be the kind of day game I do in Europe, where there's just not that expectation. Now, the big thing about evolution is people adapt. They either adapt genetically, mimetically, I think epigenetically, I don't know a lot about that, but just in strategies people adapt, right? You have social evolution. So the world changes, you start dealing with it. Now, what you'll find is win-win reinforces a positive worldview, right? If you start out tit for tat, right, you start out being nice, you project honesty and integrity outwards because that's how you are. You're going to start bringing those sorts of people into your life. It'll reinforce it, and your vibe will shoot up. But what you'll also find is, you've probably noticed when you see the value taker types, is they just strike you as creepy, right? Win-lose guys strike you as creepy. And I think this is because people have a natural bullshit radar. I think it's a development over evolutionary time to spot unfakeable signals that people are going to defect on you, right? That they're going to betray you in the iterated prisoner's dilemma game. So you start to sense this. Now, girls, of course, are very, very good at this when it comes to reading you emotionally. Right? Girls are very good at detecting the creepy vibe, detecting the shyster vibe. Now, that doesn't mean it'll never work, because obviously, girls are not 100% at this. Girls will have their own needs, their own baggage, their own emotions, their own horniness, and they might just like you so much that they don't really give a fuck. They'll take the risk, right? But generally, over time, if you come in with a win-lose vibe, right, you're creating this. Your world creation is going to put bad people around you. And it's going to make you creepy, right? Your face will look creepy. Your body language will look creepy. People will look at you, and their smell test, their gut reaction will be, I don't trust that guy. He's a bit sleazy. There's something off with him, Now, if you want to test that, just go into YouTube and search something like, I don't know, three secrets to pick up women, right? Or, the one magic trick to pick up women. Get hot girls now, or I don't know, the 6 secret techniques to becoming a natural, whatever it is. And then you'll see a whole load of shysters, with dating coaches, a whole load of the shysters who are going to try and scam you. And if you watch their videos, you'll just feel, it's like having creepy crawlies on your skin, right? You'll get this weird, like this cold hand walking up your spine, where your whole body is saying, look, there's something fucking off with this guy, right? He's not honest. And he's not. It's because this is a guy who has the win-lose mentality, who is projected that onto the world, and is, scam or get scammed. I'm going to get my scam in first. So he is world creating a scam mentality around him. It's reinforcing, and it's just taking him ever deeper into scam territory. And if you're not in that scam territory, you can just spot it. You can spot it a mile off, right? It's something's just not right. It's like I don't know. It's like smelling milk a couple of days after it's gone off. Now, because of this problem, now we'll go back to the prisoner's dilemma. Remember, it can be that iterated and non-iterated. So non-iterated, you play it once, right? Really strong logical reasons, rational self-centered reasons why you just scam the other guy. And then you have the iterated prisoner's dilemma, which is more realistic for human development, us living in small stable communities most of our existence, is you play the game over and over again with knowledge of other people's behavior and history. What it does is it encourages tit for tat, i.e. being nice, right? So that's actually so you think of game is and the hustle. Well, why is it that big cities are full of dickheads, right? Why are big cities more dangerous than the countryside in terms of being ripped off? Well, big cities have anonymity. I mean, especially a big city like, say, London, right? You could walk around London 8 hours a day, every day, and you might never see the same person twice, right? So when you get big anonymous cities, what you're basically getting is a never-ending series of non-iterated prisoner's dilemmas, right? Every person you meet, if you're dating, you're meeting for the first time. You know nothing about them, nothing about their history, as they do not know anything about you, and you can pump and dump them, you can screw them over, move on, and nobody's ever really going to know, right? Especially in this era of prepaid mobile phones and setting up email accounts easily, right? No one will ever know, and there's a lot of guys that actually recommend you do this. So daygame is confronting this reality, right? We've long said, the top day gamers, we've long said that the best conditions for day game is large, anonymous urban sprawls. Precisely. Now, this comes into prisoner's dilemma a little bit different, but now we've got a different parallel prisoner's dilemma going on, which is the girl and her boyfriend. Right, so it's not the prisoner's dilemma of you and her. That's one venue for the game. But there's a different game going on in the background, which is the girl and her boyfriend. Right, she's in an iterated prisoner's dilemma with him. But what she's suddenly got the chance for in this anonymous environment is the secret society. Right, the secret society is she can date you and maybe fuck you, and nobody finds out. So she gets a chance to basically break the normal pattern of the prisoner's dilemma. Is she gets to defect on her boyfriend, right? Because for her, right, what's the payoff matrix with her and her boyfriend and monogamy, right? It's like you both cooperate, i.e. you both don't cheat, you don't philander, and you both get a certain amount of pleasure from each other, right? Win-win. But what happens if one person cheats and the other doesn't? Well, that person gets all the benefits of the monogamy of the other partner, but they also get the benefit of sexual variety and new adventure with other partners. What happens if both cheat? Well, now you lose-lose, as they destroy their own relationship in order to get these extra sexual partners. So when you meet a girl in day game, or night game, whenever, but I think day game's particularly good for this, in a large anonymous city, is she suddenly gets the chance to defect extremely safe. It's really unlikely that the boyfriend will find out and they'll end up in a lose-lose spiral. So you can see why the secret society sex seems like an opportunity to the girl if she likes you. It's basically something for nothing. Now, the other thing about these large anonymous cities is because you basically get a series of non-iterated prisoners' dilemmas, is they're very good for con men. Because, right, if you take it as read that the basic human default strategy in stable communities is tit for tat, right? Start nice, punish defectors. That is a world in which cheaters cannot prosper because there are no suckers. So con men don't last very long, right? They get to scam one or two people, everyone finds out about them, they lose all social trust, and they can't do it again, right? They might get ostracized, or they might just have to stop being con men and start cooperating, right? There's a kind of enforcement of social norms going on in these smaller, more stable communities. However, in anonymous cities, that social pressure doesn't apply, so these con men are able to flit from sucker to sucker, cheating them, and so long as there's enough suckers in town, they can keep going. Now, this is why con men must always move on. Right? They move from town to town, they move from social group to social group, right? They must move on, because the only way they can win in the non-iterated prisoner's dilemma is to stop it ever becoming iterated, i.e. their prospective suckers have played against them before or know what their history is. So, applying this to the PUA industry, this is why the PUA scammers have no friends. I mean, they might form syndicates and cartels, but they have no friends. Right? It's why they have no reputation in the community. It's why none of the well-regarded guys will say, oh yeah, I vouch for him. Right? These PUA scammers, you'll see they might have a YouTube channel or a website, they might have a lot of subscribers, but what you won't find is the reputable guys associating with them. Well, very rarely. And you'll also find, they have to kind of astroturf their own stuff, they have to come up with their fake testimonials, they have to go on Fiverr.com or whatever to get fake comments on their YouTube channel, right, or to get fake subscribers, because they're trying to give the illusion of social acceptance, right? If you get into the Cialdini stuff about, pre-selection social proof, they're trying to give the illusion of that because they don't have it for real. The reason they don't have it for real is they're scammers, i.e. win-lose, and they've been ejected from the normal stable community. So that's why their marketing relies on cold traffic. So think of, say, my business model, or some of my colleagues, like, say, Tom or Steve or someone like that. What is our business model based on? It's kind of like the business version of the stable community with a iterated prisoner's dilemma. Right? Let's say for mine, let's use my example. Right, I put up a lot of blog posts. I think I put up about 750 of them now over the years. I've put out a lot of books. This is whatever my 18th or 19th podcast of the year. I've spoken at events, I meet people in the street and chat to them. I've given a bunch of free residentials over the last 2 years just because I met a guy in the street, liked him, so I let him hang out for 4 or 5 days and taught him. Right, so there's a certain amount of the world creation there is win-win. Now I'm a bit of a dick at times. I got my own like abrasive side to my personality, but I think the reason why I've got a lot of blog readers, a lot of YouTube followers, where I sell a lot of products, is people accept I'm basically a good guy, with the caveat that I'm a bit of a dick. Right, so, but I give out a lot of value for free, right? That's what content marketing is, right? Give out loads of value for free, start nice. But you'll also see I don't take any shit from people, right? So if someone's annoying me in my comments on my Twitter or my YouTube, I'll have a go at them, or I'll fucking ban them. I don't give a shit, right? I don't tolerate cheater behaviour, right? I'm not a sucker. So I reply tit for tat. If you come onto my blog and you're nice, if you catch me in the street and you're nice, I'll be nice to you. If you be a dick, I'll punish you. And then if you become nice again, I'll probably be quite forgiving, right? So that's a kind of like natural tit for tat. It's not something I've particularly practiced. I think this comes natural to a lot of people, right? But what it means is I steadily build my audience, right? Like, guys will read my stuff, they'll buy my products, and most of them will like it. So they'll come back for more. They think I got value for that, I'm going to have more of that. I like this guy, I want more of it. Now, some, of course, will drop off because they buy it and they're disappointed and it's not what they're into, or they change their priorities, whatever. But by and large, people will read me, and if they take a liking to what I'm doing, they'll stick around because I'm offering value. And anytime they buy one of my products or read one of my blog posts, they kind of know, because of my prior history, the iterated prisoner's dilemma, that they know what they're getting. I'm going to essentially cooperate, right? I'm going to give value. And therefore, when they give me value, whether it's buying my product, putting a comment up, or just saying, hey, I like your blog post, they're giving value back. It's a win-win spiral, right? It's lovely. No, but what do all the PUA scammers do? It's all based on the one-off non-iterated prisoner's dilemma, right? What do? They put a squeeze page up, they buy traffic, they put a clickbait thing up, like 5 secrets to get the girls' knickers off, whatever, or like a little click on a porn site, there'll be a little banner ad where it's like, look at this ugly nerd, you never believe how he bangs hot girls, click here to find out how, whatever. Takes you to a landing page, it's immediately trying to get your email address, gives you some kind of aggressive autoplay video that you can't stop or skip, saying like, this information's going to piss you off, this guy is fucking more girls than you, right? Whatever they use to hook you in. Then there'll be the long form sales letter, right, where the building report, like Tom's podcast talks in detail about how these guys structure their pitch. But what I want to focus on is the prisoner's dilemma, is that their pitch is always based on they have one chance to pick your pocket, right? They're always assuming that you'll never come back, right? They're always assuming that you know nothing about them, nothing about their history. They've got one chance to blow smoke up your arse to get access to your credit card, and they better take as much money as they possibly can in that one chance, because the minute you get the product, you're going to be like, oh, that's shit. So that's why they do forced continuity programs. It's why they try and get you in on like a $5 payment, which increases to a $30 monthly fee, hidden in the small print. It's why they're really bad at cancelling the payments when you try to get out, right? It's a con. It's a con. And how can those cons work? They only work in a situation where you have a non-iterated prisoner's dilemma, where you don't know their history, and therefore they're able to go through the pool of suckers, right? And there's a sucker born every minute. Every seeker is a sucker. Good P.T. Barnum quote. So you can actually see the prisoner's dilemma and cooperation and win-win, win-lose mindsets and world creation going on through internet marketing and the PO industry, right? You can see the guys who have the win-win attitude, like say me or Tom or Steve or whatever, and there's a lot of others. And you can see the guys who have the win-lose attitude, right? They have the I'm a cheater, let's find a sucker attitude. You can actually see this in the industry. So we're getting near an hour in. Let's draw this to actual your game. Now, what you should have been tumbling to as I've been rambling on is that this is all about building your vibe. Right? Vibe is the holy grail of game. Once you've got the technique, the biggest single influence on your results is your vibe. Now, there's a lot of self-help, happy, clappy stuff, talks about building your vibe, like just be positive, man, and all that. Now, I'm trying to be a bit more specific, and I'm trying to give you like the evolutionary reasons and the political philosophy reasons behind this. But the key takeaway here is tit for tat. Right? Start nice, reward good behaviour, punish bad behaviour immediately, but be forgiving when the behaviour turns good again. Right? That's the single biggest takeaway from this. Treat the world as an iterated prisoner's dilemma, where you're going to be playing the game over and over again with the same people, where they're going to know your history and track record. And if you just apply tit for tat strategy, start off giving value, be nice, give before you get, then things are going to turn out good. Now, they're not just going to turn out good because of rational self-interest of getting into win-win cycles with all the other nice people around you, but because of world creation and projection. You're going to actually draw the better people to you, which is going to reinforce the win-win. So again, from a purely Machiavellian point of view, this is the smart strategy. It's enlightened self-interest. But what it also is it permeates your vibe. It absolutely seeps into your core of your vibe. Is you become a guy who thinks the world's a nice place, that expects good behaviour, that holds himself to standards of good behaviour. And people just smell this on you. They just look at you and you pass the smell test. They think, this guy is a good guy. This guy can be trusted. Now, it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're a sucker, because the whole point of tit for tat is you punish the bad behaviour. You don't accept it. Right? So suckers just keep being nice. You're going to be nasty and show the hard edge when you need to, but it's going to be when it's deserved. It's not going to be your default strategy of cheating people. So, bear in mind, women have a very good bullshit detector for these kinds of things. What you're going to find is your vibe becomes really good, and girls notice it, and therefore they react really well on the street. Now, one of the reasons you can think, one of the things is, why do they react well on the street? Well, if you think of these large anonymous cities, right, there's a lot of cheats out there trying to play suckers. Right? There's a lot of guys who are like play or get played, and these girls are going to experience a lot of them, right? Whether it's like guys on Tinder sending dick pics, whether it's like in blowhards in bars and nightclubs, whether it's like guys trying like snake seduction with their fucking tantric massages or their salsa classes, right? Women are used to seeing all of these cheats around them trying to play them for suckers, right? And they don't like it because it creates, right, around them a bad world, right? These women their world is getting constantly chipped away at by these scumbags, right? So from a world creation point of view, it's forcing upon them a world that they don't want to live in, right? They want to live in a happy world full of like babies and pandas and rainbows and unicorns, right? So if you come up to a girl on one of these grey, dreary, busy streets that's just coming home from work, and you come in shining the win-win happy energy, right? Think of what that's bringing to her, right? It's the warm end of the pool. It's the bright shining light. It is, you see those YouTube compilations where it's like, this video will make you cry, and then it shows you, fucking, I don't know, like fucking a dog helping a fucking cat out of a flooded stream or something, right? Or like some passerby, good Samaritan helping out someone in trouble. Oh, that's so sweet. Maybe the world isn't such an evil place after all, right? Like that kind of feeling. You're bringing a bit of that to the set when you come in with a glowing win-win energy, right? You're not just impressing upon the girl that, you're a charismatic, cool guy, that you're a seducer, that, you're offering the adventure, sex, whatever. It's not just that, because that's got a certain element where it's just like a rational proposition for the girl, like, do you want to get this something for nothing? What you also present to the girl is a little bit closer to tugging on the heartstrings, is when you come in with this, like, happy, good vibe, win-win energy, you're just reinforcing to her this idealistic belief that she has, that actually the world's quite a nice place, there's a lot of nice people in it, isn't that sweet? So it's very subtle, but that sort of thing, you're just going to notice better, you're going to reach hook point easier over time, you're going to get stronger attraction over time, you're going to find comfort and rapport easier over time when you bring this energy in. Now I'm rambling, this has been a very long mind wank, so I'm going to finish with Dale Carnegie. Right, Dale Carnegie wrote the first ever self-help book, and it's still the best one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think it was written in the 30s, but anyway, it's a fantastic book, and I absolutely, wholeheartedly recommend you buy it. Right, why? Well, apart from the fact that's fantastic, why is it fantastic? Well, it was written in the 30s, that's the first thing. So it was written before the collapse of civilization, before all the estrogen started flooding male population, before political correctness, before multiculturalism. It was written at a time when you had a real society full of real men and real women. So it's self-help without happy clappy. Right? There's no tantric sex in there. There's no feel-good pablum. Well, not a lot anyway. There's no Oprah Winfrey-isms, right? It's none of the weird faggoty mysticism that poisons the self-help community now, right? It's relatively straight-laced, and it's got loads of good advice in it. And now my favourite chapter is, and I'm going to read from it. It is in part 2, chapter 1. So part 2, ways to make people like you. Chapter 1, do this and you'll be welcome anywhere. Now I actually use this when I coach students. So I'm just going to read it. I'm just going to read it straight off the book for you. It's quite a long quote, so bear with me. I think it's worth it. So, from Dale Carnegie. Why read this book to find out how to win friends? Why not study the technique of the greatest winner of friends the world has ever known? Who is he? You may meet him tomorrow coming down the street. When you get within 10 feet of him, he will begin to wag his tail. If you stop and pat him, he will almost jump out of his skin to show how much he likes you. And you know that behind the show of affection on his part, there are no ulterior motives. He doesn't want to sell you any real estate, and he doesn't want to marry you. Did you ever stop to think that a dog is the only animal that doesn't have to work for a living? A hen has to lay eggs, a cow has to give milk, and the canary has to sing. But a dog makes his living by giving you nothing but love. Oh, that's sweet, isn't it? Right, I'll continue. When I was 5 years old, this is from the book. When I was 5 years old, my father bought a little yellow-haired pup for 50 cents. He was the light and joy of my childhood. Every afternoon, about 4:30, he would sit in the front yard with his beautiful eyes staring steadfastly at the path, and as soon as he heard my voice or saw me swinging my dinner pail through the buckbrush, he was off like a shot, racing breathlessly up the hill to greet me with leaps of joy and barks of sheer ecstasy. Tippy was my constant companion for 5 years. Then one tragic night, I shall never forget it, he was killed within 10 feet of my head, killed by lightning. Tippy's death was the tragedy of my boyhood. You never read a book on You never read a book on psychology, Tippy. You didn't need to. You knew by some divine instinct that you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Let me repeat that. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Yet I know and you know people who blunder through life trying to wigwag other people into becoming interested in them. Of course it doesn't work. People are not interested in you, they are not interested in me. They are interested in themselves, morning, noon and after dinner. I think that's a delightful quote. Now, I'm actually thinking of doing a podcast just on dog game. I don't mean like walking a dog to meet girls. I mean modelling and copying certain characteristics that dogs have. I believe there's only 2 times in a man's life he's ever allowed to cry, and that's when his dog dies and when his laptop breaks. There's something special about dogs, a man's best friend. But as I was saying to a student recently on a residential, I believe there's such a thing as the day game face. It's different to the night game face, but there's a type of vibe, a way of holding yourself and holding your face, your eyes and so on. And I spoke about this at the recent Outlaw Day Game seminar. There's certain things that dogs do, like happy dogs do, with how they present themselves, which is incredibly attractive and incredibly rapport building from the very first moment. And if you can successfully model this, you're going to get a hell of a lot more hook points. Now that's a different podcast for a different day. But to bring this one back around to game theory, Prisoner's Dilemma and the hustle, is dogs have the best hustle and they do it purely through win-win. So I'll just leave you with that thought.